So game week 6 is just about over. It's time to look into some of the things we did good, maybe some of the things we did bad. We're going to recap how my team did, and then we're going to look at some of the main talking points from game week 6 as we go into game week 7. So if you like the video, please hit the like button, subscribe if you're new. With that being said, let's get straight into the video. So 70 points for me as it stands, not all out just yet. We've still got Iliman and Jai still to play for Everton against West Ham United, so I can look forward to that tonight. But otherwise, it was off the back of a wild card for me, which didn't allow me the luxury of triple captaining Erling Haaland like some people. So well done if you went there, did that. It paid off really well for you. But using the wild card allowed me to bring him in, get rid of Salah, and it also allowed me to bring in players like Gabriel, who returned with a goal, some DEFCON points as well, and an overall 13 points with some bonus points as well, which obviously I was delighted with. Big returns as well from Senesi, who didn't keep a clean sheet, but he got his DEFCON points again, and he also got an assist. And on top of that, Semenyo with a goal, as fantastic as ever this season, but still quite highly owned. But all this added up to a nice respectable score of 70. There's a few points left on my bench. I don't think I would have ever started Chris Richards really, but he came up with a little assist, I believe, against Liverpool, which I don't think you can see that coming in hindsight. On top of that, Joe Rodon for Leeds, somebody who I've sung his praises all season. The Leeds defence does look pretty good for a promoted side, but I haven't had the guts to start him in any game yet. And for me, the best value £4 million midfielder, defender, sorry. And he's only proved it again there with another decent haul, 7 points. So somebody I've got to look maybe to consider playing in the future when Leeds have some respectable fixtures. Otherwise, there's a lot of disappointment. I brought in Raya for the future fixtures. I didn't completely expect the clean sheet against Newcastle, which obviously he didn't get. The Man City midfielders also letting me down with Foden and Reinders. I was listening to this one on the radio and they announced it as a Phil Foden goal, the first Man City goal, and I was over the moon with that. And then obviously you look on the replays and it was an obvious own goal from Esteve, who later went on to score another own goal on top of that. So the Man City midfielders were a little bit of a disappointment for me, but if I didn't bring in Foden, my other choice was Bruno Fernandes, which would have been a -1. So there's a 2-point difference, a 2-point swing there. So I have to look at the positives in that sense. So let's move on and look at some of the other main talking points from game week 6 going into game week 7. So I actually want to start off talking about Bruno Fernandes. Now, he's actually in 1/5 of FPL teams. A few people would have brought him in on their wildcard this week. Some people gone a little bit different like me with Phil Foden. But Bruno Fernandes, I think going into this last game week was a very respectable option. I think you can count yourself kind of unlucky that he's missed another penalty. Another day that goes in. And he did have to take quite a lot. He did have to wait a long time to take that penalty, which couldn't have helped him. But for me, that's no defence. He's a professional. He should be able to cope with that sort of stress and pressure. Somebody who takes penalties pretty regularly for Manchester United. And maybe I've noticed a little bit he's changed his technique with his penalties, and maybe that's affecting him as well. We've seen less of that stuttering run up, and that could and since he stopped that, we've seen the quality of his penalties drop, I think, significantly. So maybe he needs to go back and mix it up like he did, like he used to anyway. Going forward then, so for those of you who own him, I would certainly, he has to be a keep for now. With Sunderland at home next, that should be a decent fixture for Bruno Fernandes. Sunderland, though, themselves are flying high. They're looking really good, even away from home. So I do think the way Manchester United play, and Sunderland will give them a game. But as an owner of Bruno Fernandes, I would be very, very happy with that fixture coming up. Once that fixture is out the way, however, I think that's when you can start to look to offload. With Liverpool away, Brighton at home, which will be tough. They've just gone to Chelsea and beat them. And then you've got Nottingham Forest and Tottenham. Two tough places to go. Maybe not so much this season in terms of Nottingham Forest, but they're not ideal fixtures. And if he's, the chance with it, the way these penalties are going, if they take Bruno Fernandes off penalties, maybe Mbeumo takes penalties, who's a good penalty taker himself, he becomes less of an option. And he's got a good XG per 90 when you look at it as well. The underlying stats are there, but maybe he is just being affected by that deeper position he is taking up. So going forward, obviously you hold for now, but it's not somebody I'd be looking to bring in because of those fixtures after Sunderland at home. So sticking with that Brentford-Manchester United game, up the other end of the pitch, we're looking at Igor Thiago now, who got that brace against Manchester United and looked really good in that first half against them. Sort of died out in the second half, but that was to be expected and probably reflects more as Brentford as a team sort of died out before they got their goal in added time to seal the deal. Now, we haven't got an abundance of, I was going to say cheap strikers, but strikers altogether. The template striker striking force, it's definitely Erling Haaland, probably Victor Gyökeres, and probably João Pedro. There might be a few people and extra players sprinkled in there, like potentially Richarlison, maybe still some people holding Hugo Ekitike. But there isn't an abundance of options this season. Igor Thiago at 6 million could represent really good value, especially if you're struggling to find budget. You're trying to fund the rest of the team. Even you could be one of these managers that are going with trying to get Erling Haaland and Mo Salah in your teams. And Igor Thiago could be a potential option there. His XG per 90 isn't too bad. It's 0.36. And 4 goals already this season, no assists. He doesn't look like much of an assist maker, but certainly a goal scorer. And he is tied second in the Premier League top scorers list. And I just think going forward, he could be a great enabler and probably potentially a better enabler than Jørgen Strand Larsen. When we're looking at 6 to 6.5 million pound midfielders, I see Jørgen Strand Larsen's name mentioned a lot in that category, where I think Igor Thiago, the goals are going to come only really from him, sprinkled around the rest of the team. But when you lose players like Brentford did, like the quality of Mbeumo and Visser, Igor Thiago is going to be the one, it seems, picking up the slack there. And he just looks like a really solid option. The fixtures going forward, they're not ideal. But they are at home. They're 2 difficult fixtures against Manchester City and Liverpool. Sandwiched in between that, you've got West Ham United away, and then 3 sort of okay fixtures: Crystal Palace, Newcastle, and Brighton. Now, like I say, as an enabler, and then you could, maybe if you don't fancy him one of those games, you bench him, you play that 4 at the back. Template seems to be to have defenders in your team at the moment. So he could be a nice little rotation striker for your teams going forward. So let's talk a little bit about Gabriel then. He is owned by just about a quarter of the FPL manager database. Now, I was obviously, like I said before, I was delighted I brought him in on my wildcard, but it was something I talked about leading into that wildcard. And even in previous weeks, I've sort of talked about this. Arsenal defenders, maybe they weren't the flavour of the month, certainly at the start of the season, because of the fixtures Arsenal had. But we always knew this fixture swing was going to happen, and it starts right now with West Ham United at home. And then you can see those fixtures at the bottom: Fulham, Crystal Palace, Burnley, Sunderland, and then Tottenham. It's a good old fixture run coming up for Arsenal. But who were the defenders that we should be targeting? And for me, it was always Gabriel, and I've always advocated for Gabriel. because of what he did against Newcastle. He is an attacking threat from these corners. He's not really a minute's risk either. And to be honest, I've sort of downplayed the minutes of Calafiori and Timber on the other side, because they have those competition for places in Ben White and Miles Lewis-Skelly. And you know, I was just always worried that one of those would eventually come in for those fullbacks, and you've got that rotation risk, where with Gabriel, you know, you've got a nailed starter. So going forward, definitely, if we need an Arsenal defender now, you may even need two. I don't completely hate Gabriel and one of those fullbacks, or David Raya in goal, which is what I've got. So definitely going forward, the double up on Arsenal in defence, I think, is the clever move. It's Gabriel and whoever you decide to pick. Either go the goalkeeper or go one of the fullbacks. So a quick word on a player that should be in most of our teams, but is actually only in 20% of our teams currently, Marco Senesi. He does seem like a little bit of a game breaker to me. When FPL priced these players that had very good potential for DEFCON points, James Tarkowski I'm thinking of very in particular here. I think even, yeah, you could consider Collins and Lacroix at Crystal Palace and Brentford respectively. They price them knowing what they can achieve. I think they missed the boat with Marco Senesi, and that's why we're all jumping on him now. Luckily I jumped on him at a much better price, 4.6 I believe. But he's matching Tarkowski for DEFCON points. He's hit him in every game so far this season. And he's at much better value as well. And Bournemouth have chipped in with their fair amount of clean sheets as well on top of that this season. He's had 2 assists, which has been a nice little bonus on top of all these DEFCON and clean sheet points. And he has been the standout defender of the season, and now the highest points scoring defender of the season. Now, to me, as a defender and as a good value defender at that, he has become just about essential, dare I say. That word can be thrown about and maybe not even used enough sometimes. But Marco Senesi for me, and then he has to be in everybody's team. Coming up as well with Fulham, Crystal Palace, Nottingham Forest. They're not bad fixtures at all. Fulham at home as well. Crystal Palace away, I think it will be tough. They've proved what they can do and they're on their fabulous unbeaten run. But then Nottingham Forest at home, who are really struggling under the new manager, Ange Postecoglou. So for the next 3 as well, you've got a nice fixture run there, and probably the colours don't do it justice because it doesn't look appetising. But then after that, of course, very tough. Manchester City, Aston Villa. But if you had to, you could play him in those games and not worry, because if he's going to get DEFCON points, because he's going to have to do defending. And then on top of that, you know, you're looking 2 points for playing, you've got your 4 points there. If you can get 4 points, maybe, you know, you're quite happy with that in a game like Man City away. So going forward, all I can say is make sure you got Marco Senesi in your teams. Now, one player that I think deserves a bit of airtime and has gone under the radar, and I haven't heard too much about him, is Jadon Anthony at Burnley. I don't think at the start of this season any of us thought we would be talking about any Burnley attackers. To be honest, did we really think we were going to talk about any attackers from the newly promoted sides? Maybe we've been stung by promoted sides in the last 2 years as the quality has been that poor. But in Jadon Anthony, you've got a guy who is returning almost every game bar one. 4 goals, 1 assist, XG per 90 at 0.37, and for a £5.6 million midfielder. So this would be your 5th choice midfielder. So you wouldn't have maybe an Elliot Anderson, Caicedo, Ryan Gravenberch, all in this sort of price range. Stack is another one that comes to mind. Jadon Anthony does seem like a really important player for Burnley this season. Can he keep up at this rate? I don't know. Time will tell, but I think as a punt, as a fifth midfielder in our teams, I think he is a really good option all of a sudden. Maybe it's somebody we should have all paid attention to a bit sooner, because there were signs of this with the consistency he is showing. Now the fixtures coming up are very mixed, but that's sort of ideal. The sort of ideal fixtures for a bench player. So you would have no gripes in playing him Aston Villa away because of the way Aston Villa have played. But after that, you've got Leeds at home, then Wolves away, another really nice fixture. Arsenal, you would obviously bench him for more than likely, and then you've got West Ham away after that. So there's fixtures that you can bring him in for. And as a rotation midfielder, I really like Jadon Anthony. And like I say, I just feel like he just deserves a bit of airtime. And maybe just somebody you can sneak in and he can chip away at points when you need to bring him in off your bench. So the last point I wanted to make really in this video is about the Liverpool midfielders. And the point I really want to make is, do we actually need any of them at the moment? Obviously Salah, if you can afford him, will always be a good option in FPL. Yes, there is a huge drop off this season, but he will still chip away at points. But can you justify that for 14.5 million? Probably not. So obviously Salah will always be viable, but then you look at the rest of the options. You've got Florian Wirtz, who we all know is struggling. Certainly on a returns point of view. There's people saying that, he's showing glimpses and maybe needs time to settle. But as an FPL asset, currently is completely off the table. After that, you've got Cody Gakpo, who has looked a bit non-existent in the last 3 games for Liverpool. Certainly the last 3 league games. He hasn't quite lived up to the hype that the first half of the season, the first 3 games, of the season had promised. On top of that, somebody that maybe you would consider when we talk about like Jadon Anthony and cheap midfielders is Ryan Gravenberch at 5.6 million. I don't completely hate this one as a sort of 5th choice, but he's not hitting DEFCON that regularly for sort of a holding midfielder. I think he's hit it once this season. So DEFCON is almost off the table for him, almost. Yes, he's got 2 goals, 2 assists, which is impressive. But Liverpool have brought all these attacking players in, all these new attacking players to be involved in the goals. So once they really start to click a little bit more, how involved in the goals will Ryan Gravenberch be from there on out? I don't want to say he's been a bit lucky so far. He's been an absolutely fantastic player for Liverpool so far. Maybe their standout player of the season. And he is a quality player, but not in a sort of way that translates necessarily into FPL points. I just don't think 2 goals, 2 assists every game is sustainable. That's level with Mo Salah. And if you go and look at the XG and the XA, Gravenberch is way off. It's 0.07 in both goals and assists compared to Mo Salah, which I haven't got in front of me, but it is a significant drop off. So Gravenberch's returns aren't sustainable. That would be my only worry with Gravenberch. And with a player like that, you would be hoping for DEFCON points every now and then as well, which aren't guaranteed. On top, very finally, Szoboszlai. He's being jumped around into right back, and yes, he started the last game against Crystal Palace in the attacking midfield slot with Florian Wirtz playing on the left wing, which on top of that also affects Gakpo's minutes. But then Florian Wirtz will come back into that attacking midfield role at times, and Szoboszlai may even have to drop out the team, drop back into the midfield, or even get put at right back again, which is not really what you want from sort of a £6.5 million midfielder. You would want somebody like an Iliman Ndiaye, guaranteed minutes, always playing in his preferred position on the wing, and obviously a lot better XG and potentially on penalties. You can see where I'm going with that. he's not quite the Szoboszlai would never really be the option any of us would go for. So, but then you look at the fixtures going forward. Chelsea away, it'll be tough, even with Chelsea's suspension and injury issues at the back. It will still be a tough game. Manchester United at home, Brentford away, Aston Villa, Man City, Nottingham Forest. They're not the most attractive of fixtures. There's fixtures there that Liverpool can do very well in, like Manchester United. They historically, in recent years anyway, have done really well against them. And then Brentford and Villa aren't in the most sparkling of forms. But who do you pick from that Liverpool midfield? You've either got out of form players or players who are a minute's risk, and you've got the same. I need to add this on as well. You've got the same problem with the Liverpool attackers in Ekitike and Isak. Who do you pick at the moment? It's just so difficult. You want to get in on, the team that is top of the league and get in on their attack, but it's really difficult to pick. And if you're looking at bringing any of these in, I would just hold off and wait for maybe the fixture to turn, and maybe target the Man City team or the Arsenal team. So you're looking at Gyökeres, Haaland, Foden, any of these sort of players who are like Reinders potentially, Bukayo Saka. These are all players that have got nice fixtures coming up and probably have that security of minutes as well. So I would be looking sort of in that direction rather than the Liverpool just at the moment. So I hope that video has helped you out just a little bit. I did drag it out a little bit in the end, but I hope I managed to get all the information out and give you as much information as you can to take with and do with as you will going into Game Week 7 to improve your teams. If it did help you at all, please hit the like button, subscribe if you're new. It really would help grow the channel, and it would mean a lot to me, more than you can imagine. Anyway, I'll see you next video for the transfer tips video in the next day or two. Stay tuned for that, hit the notification bell, and otherwise I will see you in that video.